This happened a year ago, back when COVID wasn't really a thing. Every year in my hometown, there's this carnival during January and March where literally everyone is drunk. So, as always, I went to the place where the party was with my parents, some friends, and my boyfriend. I drank a bit, but I was more tipsy than drunk, so at this point everything is fine, and I'm having a lot of fun, even if it's raining and I'm soaking wet. Then we all go to a bar, which is crowded. I order a beer and we all went to the back because they wanted to smoke. As you can guess, the beer made me want to pee, so I put my drink on the table where my boyfriend and dad were, so it was supposed to be safe, and went to the bathroom. A few minutes later I came back and without thinking drank the rest of it and I blacked out. I only remember a few things in flashes, like I couldn't get up out of my chair. I felt really dizzy and numb, like I was underwater or something. I couldn't hear or see correctly. It was like I lost consciousness of space-time. I remember my dad and boyfriend dragging me across the city because I couldn't walk, but that's it. We went back home around 7 p.m. and I slept until 9 a.m. the next morning. I thought that I was just drunk, so it wasn't a big deal until the friends I was with told me that my behavior was extremely strange and frightening. That somebody must have put something in my drink because I didn't drink that much. I still don't understand why, because they didn't do anything to me and I was not alone. So they couldn't take me to their home and assault me or anything. Why did they do that? Did they have bad intentions or did they just want to make fun of me? I felt really bad since, and I can't drink alcohol like I used to because it makes me feel awful. So please be careful where you drink, especially if you're a woman, and boys, please don't put drugs in our drinks. It's horrible. Sorry if my story doesn't belong here, but sharing it helps me cope with it. Edit. I actually just remembered that my dad, boyfriend, and I talked to two guys in the bar. They were very friendly, but they asked some weird questions. Asked if I had a boyfriend, how old I was, etc. So maybe it was them. I'm pretty sure it was, and it breaks my heart because they seemed really nice. Back when I was in college and I finally got my own car, my usual Friday nights were taking my cousins and my brother to my old high school's football games, since we were all fans of the sport. The games would usually end by 9:30 in the evening, and after we got done with our late night fast food joint run, the time would be around 10:30. Whenever I drop someone off at their house, regardless of what time of day it is or how much of a rush I am to go somewhere, I always make sure to sit in my car to wait until I see them enter their house. My mom and dad were the ones who always engraved this in my head because doing this ensured that they actually got home safely. My mom's fears were that they didn't have a key to get inside and they were locked out of their own home. And far worse, there was someone menacingly hiding behind the bushes or against the wall far out of sight. So the time was around 10:30 and I pulled up to my last cousin's house. The passenger side of my car that my cousin is sitting in is facing directly in front of his house's driveway. So as my cousin is gathering his stuff, I glance over to my aunt's house to see if there is anything or anyone around. That's when I see my uncle is underneath my aunt's car doing some car work. Before my cousin steps out of the car, I take a closer look and I now know that this man is not my uncle. I pull my cousin back into the car and tell him, "Look, who is that?" He is frightened at seeing this and I tell him to call his dad to make sure this wasn't him. As he does, I pull the car to the other side of the street just in case things go bad. His dad comes out as fast as he could, as do I, and now he and I are confronting the man underneath my aunt's car. The man is way underneath the car as his legs are the only part of his body that isn't under it. As it turned out, it was just a homeless man who had a few drinks, as he was slurring his words as we kept on trying to tell him that he needed to leave. I know that the man meant no harm, but I tell this story to people as a cautionary tale on why you should always make sure to scan the area and wait for your family members, friends, or whoever you are dropping off to make sure that they enter their house safely. Hey everybody, hope all is good. I've decided to tell this story today because I know a lot of people may have had similar experiences with weird or creepy host families and know how uncomfortable and awkward it is. This is a tad bit lengthy, so yeah. So basically, some of my classmates in high school and I, along with some teachers, went on a month-long trip around Europe to study, and as we only spent 1 week in each city, we stayed with the host families. The trip had been going amazingly. My friends and I, who had chosen to stay together in our accommodation, had a really good experience with the old lady that we stayed with in the first part of the trip, so we were really excited to meet our next hosts. We had been encouraged to write an email to each of our hosts a week before we left home, just so that they could get to know us and we could get to know them, which helped make our first interactions not as awkward. However, I had sent a really nice email to the father of this family, let's call him John, and he never replied. I didn't think much of it. He probably hadn't seen it, or maybe he just didn't want to answer, which is totally fine. But just when we got off the plane, I got an email from him which merely said, "Hello, let me know when you get on the bus." I thought it was a bit cold, but I do tend to be a bit overly friendly sometimes as a result of being extremely socially awkward, so I figured it was probably just me being too intense or something. A cab took us to their house and we were greeted with the strongest glare I had ever experienced. Again, me being overly friendly, I just kept saying hi and thanking him for everything and whatnot. But he didn't even say anything. He just kept glaring at us and then at the taxi driver until the cab left, and he just opened the door and let us in. Before he even said hi or even showed us around the house or anything, he made us stay in the narrow entrance and began telling us the rules of the house, which is normal, but the way he said it was very intimidating, basically stating that we had to take extreme care of his house or we'd have to pay for anything and everything we damaged, which again is valid, but he didn't stop glaring at us like we had already broken something. He ordered us to take our shoes off and told us our room was on the 3rd floor, then left, so we had to carry our suitcases up the very, very tiny and narrow stairs, not even knowing where we were going because we obviously didn't know the house and he hadn't even shown us the way. But whatever, we thought. It's probably just an awkward introduction. But the awkwardness had only just started. We were called down for dinner and sat waiting while he cooked for us and his daughters. He asked which one of us was vegetarian. That's me. After explaining how stupid and unhealthy I was for not eating meat and how being a vegetarian would take 10 years off my life, he handed me a little bowl of literally 5 pieces of very small lettuce leaves. Again, kind of weird, but we wouldn't even have dinner at their house since the school we were exchanging into covered our meals. Something I'm still glad about, so it was fine. He started asking really specific private questions like, how much money have you brought? Where do you keep it so you don't lose it? And do you come from rich families? Which made us very uncomfortable, so we just said we didn't know and tried to change the subject. He also ordered us to never speak Spanish, our mother tongue, whenever we were there, even if we were alone, inside or outside the house, which obviously we didn't do because we speak Spanish. It's not like we have trouble speaking English, but it was ridiculous when we were literally talking alone. But whenever he'd hear us talking in Spanish in our room, which I still don't know how he did, he'd come up to scold us for not conversing in English. Yes, he scolded us. We also later learned that his wife suffered from a disease. I'm not going to go into detail for privacy reasons, and we didn't see her around much. That night, my friend took a shower first, then me, and while I was getting dressed in the bathroom, he came into our rooms and started talking to us and asking us other questions. It was very uncomfortable because I was still in the bathroom and he kept coming near the door to ask me stuff and then turning back to talk to my friend. But after a while, he left and it was fine. We discussed that it was really weird and we were really worried about the money questions because it was his own house and he could easily just come in the room in the middle of the night, open our suitcases, and do whatever he pleased. The next morning, we got up really early and came down for breakfast. To be honest, we had kind of high expectations because our last host was absolutely the best. So we were expecting that he would at least have a slice of bread for us. Yeah, he didn't, but that's not the bad part. While the whole family was eating at the table, he told us to just go through all the cabinets and pantry, that there would surely be something to eat. I honestly didn't feel comfortable with raiding this family's kitchen while they were there just staring at me. My friend grabbed a banana because she didn't know what to do, and I said I wasn't hungry, so we just left and decided to no longer have breakfast at their house because it was too awkward. And I know you must think I'm overreacting. First of all, I don't know these people and it was just so weird. Besides, my social anxiety didn't help at all and I just couldn't bear being there. As I said, we had dinner at school. We didn't really spend a lot of time with them. We really only showered and slept there and that was it. But somehow, in the little time we were at the house, he always found a way to make us feel more and more out of place. We had to let him know via text when we were coming home and I'd always be polite but also friendly. So I just say, "Hi John, we are 5 minutes away." Always with a little exclamation mark to seem nice, I guess. But the second night, we arrived home and, as we went through the front door, he came stomping his way towards us, absolutely furious, like he was about to punch a wall. He started yelling at me, telling me to never ever text him or any adult like that ever again. I was so incredibly confused and scared, like, what did I even send to him? He pulled out his phone and made me read out loud that message. He said normal people do not text like that it was very disrespectful, and proceeded to show the text to everyone around the house and asked them what they thought of this and if anyone had ever texted them like this. He was so angry about an exclamation mark. I was livid inside, like absolutely at the verge of tears and leaving the house. I just said sorry and went to our room. He then came up smiling like nothing had happened and had the absolute audacity to ask, "Have you brought any gifts for us?" We had bought them a beautiful picture frame and lots of sweets from our country. We had spent a lot of money on them, so we handed it out to him and he was acting like a little kid on Christmas. However, when he opened them, he looked at them like we had given him a bag of trash. "This is it?" he asked, frowning. "I thought it was going to be something better, since we are letting you stay in our home, but I guess it's fine, thanks." He left the room disappointed. We continued to have really bad encounters with him, telling us off like we were his daughters that he could just yell at like it was nothing. At night, we would hear screaming, fighting, banging, and crying. My friend wanted to contact accommodation services to ask for a host switch because we were truly having a horrible time, running away from our host to avoid another interaction. But I refused to. I know, dumb. Because firstly, I was too shy and scared of what could happen when we told him we were leaving for another home, and also I felt really bad because of his wife, and I didn't want to give the family a hard time when they were probably already struggling with medical care, and hosting was their only income. She was mad at me for a bit, but she thought the same as I did, as badly as we wanted to leave, so we decided to suck it up. We also had gotten lost at some point while we were on the night bus back home. Luckily, there was a teacher from the school who we knew, and she walked us home. She asked us who we were staying with, and we told her we were staying with John and mentioned it was a bit uncomfortable there. Her face changed a little bit from happy to kind of worried. "Yeah, I know him. We've been told that he's a bit special, but that's it really. Don't worry about it. Yeah, try to spend a night in that madhouse and you tell me about it." When we told John about us getting lost and the teacher helping us, he seemed so interested in a creepy way. He said he knew her and asked how she was doing, and the creepiest part was, he asked us if we knew where she lived, like at least 2 or 3 times. We had seen her house, but we just told him no because it was very weird. The last full day there, he had told us that he probably wouldn't be home when we arrived, since he mentioned he was meeting a friend or something, but that he would arrive no longer than 10 minutes after we did. We arrived home that night, and as he'd said, he wasn't home. This time, the only one home was his wife. It was our first time getting to chat with her only. She was so nice. She seemed genuinely like the only sane person there. We talked for a while, actually, and then we thanked her profusely for everything, even though your husband is our nightmare, and told her she had a very beautiful family. Then she stopped smiling and said, "You think so?" "I don't think so, but thank you." Then it was all silence, for about 30 seconds. Neither of us knew what to respond to that, so after a bit, we just nervously laughed and said goodnight. John didn't return until almost midnight. He asked us if we had any laundry to do. I did some of my clothes I had been wearing for a week and really needed to be washed. But then he said that he would do it and wouldn't let me go and help or do it myself, and honestly, this might be a reach, but I really didn't want to give him my clothes for some reason. It just felt wrong. So I ended up declining, saying I remembered that I actually had washed them, which I knew wasn't believable, but there was no way I was giving him my stuff. He kept insisting, asking over and over again if I was sure, and I said I was. The next morning, we were so excited to finally be able to leave that house after a week. That felt more like a month. We had our things ready and took our stuff down the stairs to the main entrance, waiting for the cab to pick us up. Then he came downstairs and started to make small talk with us. He kept looking out the window over and over again like he was looking for something. We thanked him for the hospitality, which wasn't provided, but you have to be polite, I guess. And he started rambling about how he loved hosting students, that he had been doing this for like 10 years and stuff like that. Then he started saying weird stuff like, but you have to be careful because you don't know who you could be staying with. There are some crazy people, you know. I swear I was about ready to escape, getting ready to run when the cab arrived, and he started suddenly acting super happy and nice, like we had the greatest relationship. He hugged my friend and then went in to hug me. I reluctantly hugged him back for a second and then went out the door. As soon as I stepped out of the house, he slammed the door shut so loudly, even the cab driver looked scared. He glared at us through the little window while we got in the cab and drove off. I've never been so relieved in my life. It was like a weight being pulled off my shoulders. And you bet I blocked that number so quick. Glad that I would never have to see them again in my life. I understand that families have their issues, but that man was absolutely terrifying. Even though I'm real thankful I at least had a place to shower and sleep for a week, I'm sorry for anyone that has had to stay with him over his 10 years of hosting, or may have to in the future. But don't be like me. If you ever feel uncomfortable, just leave. Nobody is going to be mad at you. I'm lucky nothing more than the overall weirdness and verbal abuse happened to me. But there are tons of cases and wish these stories take a much darker turn. Better safe than sorry. I don't go on many dates, but when I do, I make sure I follow safety protocol by only meeting my date in public places, letting either family or friends know where I'm going, and parking in a populated place close by to wherever we meet. Anyway, this date initially suggested we meet at his house to watch a movie and have a few drinks, and I said no. I don't feel comfortable with that, and I only want to meet in public. He seemed okay with this, but then brought it up a few more times, and I said if money is an issue, we could meet up another time or forget about it altogether. But my date backtracked and went with the idea of meeting at a cafe I chose, that I was familiar with and equidistant to where we both lived. Anyway, he turns up in a 2-door car. This detail is relevant and goes into the cafe, and I follow behind and introduce myself. After a polite introduction, things begin to get weird. I order a Coke and he says, "Don't you want a drink?" I was going to pop into the bar, which is connected to the cafe, and get one. I say, "No, I'm not drinking." And he looks at me like, "What the heck?" As if I'm being unreasonable. I already explained in messages I don't drink as I'm on medication, so having to re-explain it again pissed me off. He seems disappointed and goes to order a cider from the bar while I get a table. Anyway, we sit down with our drinks, and my date immediately goes on about going back to his place again, even though the original plan was to stay here and order food, and I already stated that was not happening. He says something along the lines of having a few drinks and eating at his place, and I said we don't have to eat, we can just have our drinks and leave. He gets defensive and says he has money but prefers it if we go back to his. I make a joke and say, "You're not a killer, are you?" And instead of laughing it off, he stares at me uncannily and says, "You don't think I would hurt you, do you?" I laugh uncomfortably and say, "Of course not. But really, I'm relieved this date won't be going any further." He suddenly says, "Are you going to follow me in your car? Because that wouldn't make sense. How about we go in my car, but I've got packages in the front, so you'll have to squeeze in the back, and I'll drop you back off to your car after." In reality, that made less sense than me following him in my own car and then driving home from his house after. The fact it was completely illogical made it even more creepy in my mind. Every alarm bell was going off at this point. I said, "Look, I don't want to go to yours, and your insistence is giving me the creeps." He looks shocked, mumbles something about needing the toilet, and excuses himself from the table. A few moments later, I see him through the cafe window getting into his car and driving off. A massive bullet dodge, in my opinion. Also, the fact his car didn't have back doors made it even more sinister, because imagine if something happened in the car and I couldn't escape. A couple of years ago, my husband and I took a trip to Yosemite. We stayed outside the park in El Portal. One evening, while we were driving back from the valley, I noticed that the headlights caught what appeared to be somebody lying down on the side of the road, both feet pointed towards the street. I told my husband there was a person lying in the pitch black on the side of the highway, He knows I love my true crime and was absolutely certain that what I had seen were trash bags. I was so certain, I just kept saying, "No, I saw a body. I know that was a person." We made our way back to the hotel, and as we were about to park, my husband looked over at me and said, "You are really sure about this, aren't you? You want to go back?" I was desperate. "Yes, I do." As we drove by again, I saw the feet. I had my husband turn the car back around and yelled at him to stop the car. He rolled down his window and said, "Are you okay?" There was no answer. One more time, even louder, "Are you okay?" Suddenly, a woman dressed in all black sat up. She was wearing a nice brown jacket and black pants and had her purse and 3 water bottles. Her makeup was done nicely and she seemed very sweet. I could tell my husband was absolutely shocked. I asked her where she was headed. She said that she was trying to get to the Chevron station up the road and that her mom was going to meet her there to pick her up. This woman looked to be in her late 40s. I knew something weird was going on because where we found her, the Chevron station, was still another 7 miles away. She said in her mind she thought it was only about a mile from our hotel and she could walk it. We offered her a ride and she climbed into the back seat. Not before I grabbed a thick scarf to wrap around my neck and pepper spray. As we drove, we tried to ask her questions, just chit-chat. I asked why she was lying on the side of the road. She said she had gotten tired of walking and just laid down, ready to give up. It was winter and she had no hat or gloves with her. I could tell she was very fragile. Once we arrived at the Chevron station, she thanked us, got out of the car, and sat on a bench in front of the closed Chevron station store. We offered to stay with her until her mom arrived, but she said she'd be fine. I reminded her that there was no cell reception in the area and triple-checked that she didn't want us to wait with her. We drove back to our hotel and noticed there were now 2 police cars in the parking lot. They had not been there the first time we arrived back from the valley that evening. I told my husband I knew that they had to be there for that woman. I calmly walked over to one of the cars and asked if they were looking for a missing woman. The officer told me that they were and asked if I'd seen her. I explained the situation and that I really felt like the woman had something very bad happen to her. He thanked us for picking her up and giving her a ride. He couldn't tell me what had happened, but thought her leaving and going somewhere else was a smart choice. I asked that he go check on her at the Chevron station just to make sure she was okay and that her mom did finally arrive. I'm realizing that whatever happened was at the same hotel we were staying at. That evening, I looked at the local police log and found that a domestic violence dispute had broken out at the hotel. The woman had been beaten very badly and she was so terrified that she was willing to walk in the dark without a flashlight just to escape. It's my guess that after walking about a half mile from the hotel, she was in so much pain that she needed to lie down. I got the feeling that she thought she might actually die there. She couldn't go back to the hotel because she had already escaped and gone to the front desk to call her mom. Her husband knew she'd been there and would have come after her. The front office called the police for her while she escaped. It's my understanding that the man who hurt her was her husband and was arrested. I always wondered about her and whether she went back to him. Did her mom pick her up? Is she safe now? Now my husband listens when I say, "There's a body on the side of the road."